Friends and family, I would like you to check out blackcommunityspeak.com. Now, blackcommunityspeak.com is a forum-based website, so something that's very simple, where you can get on, you can get off, get involved with a lot of topics. Now, Black Community Speaks is a place that's for Black men and women to talk about issues that's affecting the entire community. So on blackcommunityspeak.com, they talk about topics in the range of news, what's going on in society, relationships, technology, business, food and recipes, gaming, health and fitness, music, and many, many more. On Black Community Speak, it's a place where you can be safe to say what you want to say without the fear of big tech censorship. So make sure you head on over to blackcommunityspeak.com and sign up today.
Yeah, welcome back to the African Diaspora News channel. My name is Richard Sudan. Thank you for tuning in. Please like and subscribe and support the platform. Now, just a quick word today about a story that I saw in the US news. And I want to know what's going on, America. What's going on, liberals, all you so-called anti-racist goody-goody liberals, and all the black people that voted for Biden, all the brown people that voted for Biden, believing this guy is some sort of anti-racist. 300 or so white supremacists were marching through Philadelphia, calling themselves the Patriot Boys or the Patriot Front or whatever the hell they call themselves. And these openly white supremacist car-carrying racists were marching through Philadelphia, and luckily they rightly got chased out by black people in the city, and they had to flee in their trucks with their tail between their legs. But for me, this ain't really the story. This isn't really the story, because these cowards, these white supremacist racists, are intent on hurting, killing and maiming black people. Now, the reality is, although they got chased out of the city, this could have played out very differently, because cowards, as we know these groups are, they always prey on people and individuals who are vulnerable and who are weak. They swipe people from their porches. They never want a fair fight. They only really march in numbers, usually when they're armed. And so they got chased out of the city, as well they should be. But thank goodness, because what would have happened if these individuals are marching elsewhere and they see somebody who's easily a target? Now, what really strikes me is the sort of liberal media in November, particularly CNN and all these other channels, like white supremacy was really popular to be talked about in the November election, because they were trying to compare Trump and Biden, and they all wanted to get Biden in office. And so it was very easy and very clever for the so-called liberal media, to talk about white supremacy and say that Trump is the white supremacist and Joe Biden is somehow this kind of liberal savior who's going to end white supremacy in the United States, despite the fact that Joe Biden has a horrendous record on anti-black racism, and certainly actually with the policies he's implemented over the years, he's got a much worse record than Trump. And so this was the stick that kind of racist liberal white America used to beat Donald Trump. And somehow, there was this perception that getting Biden into the White House was going to somehow cure white supremacy, that it was just going to go away. Now, this march is a reminder that actually white supremacy in America, which was the founding ideology of the country, is going nowhere, and it's going nowhere fast. Joe Biden was celebrated when he won the election, although some people question the validity of areas of the election. But regardless, this was the most closely fought election in recent history. If Trump had got the numbers he received in November, at any other point in American history, he would have romped home. And Joe Biden only just got over the finish line. So here's my point. Joe Biden, who's supposed to be this kind of white savior that black liberals and loads of people have voted for, Where are his words of condemnation? Where's the anti-black hate crime bill? Where's his speeches about white supremacy and condemning it? Where are his words supposed to be backing up what he's supposed to have represented? They are missing. Now, white supremacy in America is acknowledged by even the FBI as being not only a form of domestic terrorism, but the biggest growing form of domestic terrorism. And Christopher Wray acknowledged that the majority of the FBI's resources are dedicated, apparently, to tackling these groups. Now, first of all, do we really believe that the so-called security services had no idea that this group was going to march? Maybe they didn't, but I find it hard to believe. Why was it left to black people, to anti-racists in Philadelphia, to anti-fascists to chase these people out? There's not a word from the political establishment about this. Just like Joe Biden didn't utter a word about Kobe Daniel, the black child that was nearly killed in an attempted murder in Detroit. And there's no task force, there's no police, there's no special units being sent in. Although, you know, I suppose, how do you send in special units to tackle white supremacy when half of the police force, or however many members of the police force, are sympathetic and belong to those groups? You know, like, I'm sitting here in the UK, but it infuriates many of us here. You know, if any other groups were allowed to openly march through the streets, were allowed to basically convene in the Capitol on January the 6th and just, you know, tear at the building walls. If any other groups that were anti-LGBT or anti-Asian or anti-this or anti-that, any other groups that were marching in the streets, targeting any other group, would be treated completely differently. They would be sending helicopters, tanks, whatever. But white supremacists are allowed to openly march through the streets, and it was down to the people of goodwill in Philadelphia that sent these cowards running to the hills, running to their trucks. These cowards, and these cowards are dangerous. These cowards are dangerous because they do not want a fair fight. These cowards are dangerous because they will prey on the most vulnerable. They will target women. They will target black men who are by themselves, unarmed. And so I suppose the only thing that infuriates me more than these groups themselves are the political class, which we expect you know, these kind of liberal racists to kind of make a lot of noise about racism. But when it really comes to the crunch, people that are anti-black, groups that are anti-black, are allowed to literally parade through America's biggest cities. But, you know, where are the black people that voted for Biden now? This idea that somehow this was the lesser of two evils really doesn't carry any weight with me, because you can change the president in the United States, but an ideology of white supremacy that's so deeply entrenched is not going to go anywhere without genuine political will behind it and a serious acknowledgement of it. It's like you can change the manager in McDonald's, but the menu is still the same. And Joe Biden, in my view, is not fit for office. We're seeing, even if he had the political will, even if Joe Biden didn't have the record he has on black America and anti-black policies. Let's say, for argument's sake, Joe Biden genuinely was an anti-racist. Let's say he didn't have the history of anti-black policies that he has. He's clearly not fit for office. How many speeches are we seeing now? He can barely remember where he is. He can barely remember where the exit is. He can barely remember if he's talking about Libya or Syria or whatever. So white supremacy in America right now is the most dangerous, in my view, that it's ever been. You know, there was a study in 2015 which showed that more black people were being lynched, being killed at the hands of the state and by white supremacist groups than at one of the peak years of the Jim Crow era. And so this idea, which definitely white liberals have latched onto, the racist white liberals for sure, but even the ones who would say they're not racist, they've really bought into this idea that somehow things are better under Joe Biden. But from the perspective of black Americans really dealing with white supremacy, and I say black Americans because of course there's anti-racists of all colours, creeds, etc. I'm not talking about honourable examples of people from all groups that are against white supremacy. But the reality is that we even saw, I think something like $100,000 was donated by sections of the Asian community to groups like the Proud Boys. And that's not an anti-Asian point, because just like I've got Asian genealogy, I've got African genealogy too. I have Asian lineage and African lineage. So you can't accuse me of making an anti-Asian point, because I'm of Asian descent as well as from African and European descent. Part of my family is from the Caribbean. Without going into that, we have a very mixed background. So this is not an anti-Asian point, but so many groups, and it's not just white racists, have backed this lethal cocktail of white supremacy. It's all areas of American society that are steeped in anti-black sentiment. Like, it's clear if any other groups were marching through the street and they were targeting any other groups, the media, the political class, everybody would be having a field day. Imagine if 300 or 400 people were marching through Philadelphia and had openly anti-LGBT views. People wouldn't stand for it. But of course, anti-black racism is at the bottom of the pile. We've seen from Joe Biden, and all you people that voted for Joe Biden, all you people that believed he was the lesser of two evils, what's he really done now? He's been in office for how many months? On his first day, I think it was his first day, he signed an executive order or made moves to back the LGBT community. After the BS campaign that we saw in March, in the media and certainly on social media, trying to make black people the face of anti-Asian hate, which is just false, and it's backed up by the facts that it's false. We saw the anti-Asian hate crime bill come into place. What's being done for black America? And what are black Americans who voted for Joe Biden doing to hold Joe Biden's feet to the fire, political feet? What are you doing? What needs to be done? How can you vote for this guy and then sit back as if, white supremacy is somehow kind of ended? I bet a lot of these liberals and a lot of the black people and brown people that voted for Biden, I bet a lot of those people would probably compare the leader in the UK here, Boris Johnson, to Joe Biden, and they would probably say, oh, well, Boris Johnson's an open racist, he said all these Islamophobic comments, all these anti-black comments, but Joe Biden's very different. Joe Biden is a terrible leader. He's got a clear record in anti-black racism. Not only has he pushed through policies that continue to impact and devastate the black community today, he's not saying a word on this. And a lot of analysts are actually saying that, look, Biden is trying to hold together a very narrow political coalition. Biden knows full well that to hold onto power, and I think you've got the the midterm elections coming up in 2022. He knows that he needs to appeal to a lot of quote unquote respectable white people that have anti-black fears, etc. And so he's not saying what he should be saying. These groups that are marching through the streets that want to kill, hurt and maim black people, and definitely have those intentions, are not being treated as the terror threats they are. America and the UK talk a great game when it comes to their views about terrorism in other countries, usually because they want to invade those countries and steal the resources. But when it comes to domestic terrorism in the US, of which black people are under serious threat, not a word from the political class. And even when you have institutions like the UN, when you have lawyers' reports talking about the danger of white supremacy, and we see all these examples of unexplained lynchings, black people going missing by the thousands across America, we can see what's happening. But not a word is said about it. There's a little bit of press about this, but this should be massive, huge headline news. 300 terrorists marching through, or 300 people with terrorist leanings, terrorist desires, being affiliated to terrorist groups. I don't know if the Patriot Boys, or whatever they're called, are listed as a terror group, but you can bet your bottom dollar they're probably affiliated and have links to all these other groups. but it's not treated as a terror threat because it's anti-black racism. And it's disgraceful, it's disgusting, it needs to come to an end. I don't expect anything more from Joe Biden, but people that have backed this guy and pushed him into office, if you can't see the reality now, and this is only 6 months in to Joe Biden's presidency, or whatever it is, it's only a few months in to Joe Biden's presidency, and look at what's happening. It's open season on black people in America right now. Open season. What's it going to be like in a year, or 2 years, or 3 years? Or what's going to happen if Joe Biden has to, because there's a good chance he won't be able to finish his first term or second term if he gets a second term. I mean, this guy is seriously struggling to be cognizant. He's seriously struggling to make sense. The pathway is clear for white supremacy to continue to literally march through America's streets. And thank God for the people, the black people, the black men, whoever else was out there in the streets in November that sent these white supremacists running. Because these groups look for soft targets. Let's be clear about that. Yeah? These people do not want an equal playing field or a level playing field regarding who they're going to fight. These groups do not want to face 300 black men in the streets. These groups are cowards. These groups are cowards, and deep down they know they're cowards and bullies with lethal intent, and these people are dangerous. These people are dangerous because they will prey and target on the weak. There needs to be a push or something done to deal with these groups. If not, there's going to be street justice, and there should be street justice. If any other groups were openly advocating and harboring racist sentiment towards other groups or towards whatever community it might be, people would be incensed. But because these white supremacists are marching through the street and they harbor anti-black views, people are almost laughing it off, not treating it as it should be treated, and it's almost just dismissed. I saw very few headlines about this. The same liberal media that was all over white supremacy in November is silent now, pretending like the problem isn't there. And the problem is getting worse. So yeah, I digress. But yeah, let me know what you think about this in the comments. Where are you now, you Joe Biden supporters? Where are the black Joe Biden supporters now? What are you demanding now? All you people that were rallying to get this guy in office who's not done a damn thing for black people. And that's just a fact. Hold me accountable to my words. If you can show me what this guy is really doing, I'll take back what I'm saying. I don't want to hear about the George Floyd Justice in Policing Act, even if that gets wings. As if somehow that's going to root out a hundreds of years old ideology, which is the police force, or the larger part of it. I'm not saying every police officer, YouTube police, but a huge amount of the police are open white supremacists. This reparations bill that's been tabled since the 80s, that's never going to get wings. What's Joe Biden doing? He's not doing anything. Joe Biden is basically paving a clear path for white supremacy. By not doing anything for black people, you're sending a signal to all the other groups that are anti-black. And, white supremacy is an ideology. I don't really believe you have black white supremacists, but you certainly have black people that uphold that ideology. You certainly have other groups that are sympathetic to that ideology. So yeah, I'm going to sign off there. I just wanted to bring that story to you. I appreciate you tuning in. We appreciate you supporting the platform. Please get involved. Hook up to the website. Much respect to Phil and the rest of the team. My name is Richard Sudan. This is the African Diaspora News channel, and I will see you next time.
These proceedings are concluded. This court is adjourned.
All the shit I did for this motherfucking company.
You ever had a great idea stolen from you and didn't know how to go about getting justice? In Charles Ford's The Anatomy of a Corporate Lynching, he takes us behind the scenes of his public copyright and civil rights lawsuit against his employer, Con Edison. In this explosive page-turner, Ford writes of an idea he submitted being taken and used without credit or compensation. In a book where no names have been changed to protect the guilty, Ford details how he stood his ground legally against theft and racial discrimination. Ford's exploration of a corporate lynching attempt inspires readers to pursue justice and fight back legally in the face of corporate opposition and retaliation. The Anatomy of a Corporate Lynching is available on Amazon worldwide in paperback and on Kindle. Find Ford at author Charles Ford on Instagram.
Thank you for watching. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and download the African Diaspora News Channel app, now available on Google Play and the Apple App Store.